My name is Mariah. I'm the founder of Content Queen, and you'll be listening to my interview on the Online Prosperity Show, where we dive into all things content creation, marketing, but also my journey as a digital nomad and online business owner. You'll learn from how I went from $10 press releases to online agency owner, traveling the world, currently in Colombia. I'm so excited for you to learn about my journey, but also how it can inspire yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Show, where we have entrepreneurs and aspiring digital dynamos giving us a taste of what their world looks like. Today, we're going to be unraveling the secrets to success in the digital realm. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we've got a treat lined up that's even juicier than a ripe avocado on a summer's day. Now, the person that I'm about to bring to the show today is the queen of content. Now, Maria, how are you doing today?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me, Prosper. I'm excited to chat.
Absolutely. Well, when I heard that the queen of content was going to be on the show, I just had to stop everything that I was doing and make space and time for this. And for those that are watching, you see, today's episode promises to be one that we've had the best we've had in a while. And we're about to dive deep into the world of content creation, storytelling, and digital marketing. With Maria here, the mastermind behind Content Queen. We all know that content is king, so we brought in the queen because she's got more of an opinion than what the king would ever have in store. So, hey, don't take my word for it. So let's buckle up and get ready for learning what storytelling and everything else that has to do with content creation with Maria as our guide. Now, Maria, you can see I am mincing my words. I am trying to bring about the best. You see, when you're in the face of royalty and celebrity, you kind of get starstruck. And this is exactly what has happened. So let's just start with the basics. Tell us, who is Maria and what's the story behind Content Queen?
Well, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. So yes, my name is Mariah and I'm the founder of Content Queen. So Content Queen is a content marketing agency and educational business for online business owners and entrepreneurs. And really, I started it in 2019 because I wanted more, like a lot of us, but I wanted to travel more. I was traveling a lot in my corporate job to the point that I had minus annual leave days. If you think it's possible, it's possible. Trust me, I had negative. And I wanted to start making some extra money so I could travel. Actually wasn't intended on building the business so that it would support me to travel. I actually just needed more money. I started on Fiverr, which is a freelancing platform. A lot of might have heard it. And I was doing $10 press releases and $10 blogs. I was working in marketing and communications at the time. I had a degree in public relations and journalism. So writing was my passion. Thought I could write for people. I love it. So why would I charge more than $10? Well, $10 by the time Fiverr takes its money is not going to get me very far in traveling, especially now. I don't drink anymore, but when I did, I couldn't even get a beer for that or a vodka soda at, a bar in Spain. So I was doing these press releases, I was doing these blogs for people. And then I just remember having a conversation with a guy I worked with, and I was like, I just want to do more. Like, I want to do more of this and Firefly, like, I'm not really sure. And he's like, well, just start a business, like, just have like a proper business. And that's when I started listening to podcasts, consuming it all, and became obsessed with business and launched Content Queen in 2019, my website, not my Fiverr profile, my website, after being on Fiverr for 2 years. Started the socials, all the things. And I didn't realize how many people wanted content writers. And then I learned more about content marketing in my full-time job. So I brought it into my business and strategy and storytelling, and it sort of really evolved over time. And in 2020, I quit my full-time job to travel, but we were in COVID, so there was no traveling done. I did a little bit in Australia, and then I got sick. I got diagnosed with two tumors and cancer and had major surgery, and again, wasn't traveling. So the universe or God or whatever you believe in really threw things at me like, are you sure you want to travel? Are you sure you want to travel? And then in 2020, I started traveling. So now I work in the agency. We have courses. We do one-on-one services with my partner. Yes, my partner is my co-pilot in this journey, and I have two other team members, and we serve entrepreneurs and help them share their message, share their story, and we travel full time currently in Colombia as we're recording this. So it's been a journey, but I've loved learning and evolving, and now I appreciate the travel even more because it took me a long time to get here.
Oh, absolutely. You see, it's like with a kid, if you tell them not to play with a toy, they would want that specific toy. And I think this is what would have happened with you when it came, to traveling. Now, let's just maybe go back to the time where you literally owed people days, but now you manufacture days. What was it like, in your day-to-day time that you really wanted to run away from and go traveling when you were in your corporate, experience?
Yeah, so I had a pretty good corporate experience. I wasn't the one that was like had a bad boss. I had an amazing boss who's from Melbourne, and I've caught up with him like many a times since then. But I just hated that feeling of like you had to wait till you finish work to do anything. And I would make the most. And I lived in Melbourne. So I was living in Melbourne at the time. I was from Gippsland in Victoria. For anyone that knows that massive region, I was from right in the middle. So I moved to Melbourne, and I really just loved Melbourne. I liked to party at the time. I liked all the events, everything. But I hated that I had to wait till I finished work to go to something, right? So after work, I worked in Altona at the time, actually in the West. So after work, I lived in like the East and then like the Northeast. So like it was far. Like by the time you get home, by the time, you can't do anything. And then it gets to the weekend and you live for the weekends. So whilst I enjoyed my job, I didn't enjoy the freedom and flexibility. And then, of course, I had an amazing boss who allowed me to have holidays, but I had negative leave. And I didn't want to have to ask someone to have holidays or to go somewhere because that's like to me, I don't know, it felt like a bit of a drainer. And if anyone is into any kind of astrology, I'm an Aries, and Aries are known to be like, I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. So I didn't want anyone to tell me what to do at the end of the day. So while I loved my boss, the job was great. I didn't love the industry because it was in automotive, and that's not really my passion. I mean, I don't even know how to change a tire, so I have no knowledge. So I really wanted to do something that lit me up, and that I just got to the point where I didn't see myself growing in that space either, and I wanted to grow and learn and evolve. So that's why starting a side hustle was really perfect for me. And then, of course, slowly integrating it into my full-time life. And now there's just so much freedom. You actually forget how much freedom you have until you talk to someone with a full-time job. They're like, what do you mean you just fly to somewhere on a Tuesday? And it's like, oh, like you do forget how good it is when you do work for yourself and you have that freedom and flexibility.
I like that. I like that. From negative days to, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this time? Are you selling some? Because there's a lot of people.
Oh, I would like some more still. I think it's the one thing we would all love more of in life. I think the days do go, what they say, like the days are long, but the years are short. And I think that's so true.
Fantastic. All right. So you moved on then to start side hustling on Fiverr, which obviously is very, very sort of competitive because you got to have the best offer and you got to be present on there. And the fact that you say most of the money that you were earning wouldn't even afford you a drink, at least to to wither the pain of having to wait for another gig to come through, or numb the pain of having to crawl through glass in order for you to
Mhm.
satisfy the sort of customer. What was it like for you, and why didn't you actually just decide, you know what, this is not worth it for me, because somebody
Mm.
else would have given up?
That's a great question. I had some pretty interesting experiences at the start of my Fiverr journey, charging a $10 press release and getting a negative review for a $10 press release because it wasn't quite what they wanted. And I was the professional. I worked in PR. I knew what a press, and I had a journalism degree. I did so much work experience in journalism. I knew what journos wanted, but no, 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 no. It wasn't good enough. Anyway, whatever. And I've actually had people ask me this question. I want to start on Fiverr. What do you recommend? Because I still have, like, I don't, my profile's there. I don't put any energy into it. So I don't get anything from it anymore. But I became quite uh like a trusted seller. I was in level 2. I was nearly hitting level 3. So I had a lot of value to add these people that were asking me, like, how did you deal with Fiverr? The first thing, obviously, your profile. Like, I had to build a good profile, but I did start small with low prices. I never want someone to undermine their value. I'm not about that. But as you mentioned, Fiverr is very competitive. So I had to be in a competitive space. And then everything's about reviews. So, and it's like in business, you just need that first client. And once you've got that first 1, 2, 3 clients, you get reviews, you get word of mouth, and then it starts to build and build and build. So I started there and was able to build up some reviews. And then I just kept optimizing my profile. I just kept like learning more about Fiverr, bidding. At the time, you could like bid for jobs. I like, even though I didn't get any, it was the energy I was putting in. Some people make a Fiverr profile and leave it there and it's dead and then wonder why they get no jobs. Passive income doesn't really exist, unfortunately. There's a level of something you have to do to get it. And the Fiverr is the same. You don't just have a profile and get jobs. That's not how it works. You have to work on it. I had to, make offers on jobs. I had to optimize my profile. But in the end, I got the reward because I started to get clients. And I think I'm a big energetic person and we're all energetic beings in some way. So when I made that intention, then of course I started to get more jobs. And then the more jobs, more jobs, more jobs. And it's a ripple effect. Sometimes it's the same as like when you finish university and you struggle to get a job because you've got no experience, but to get experience, you need a job. So you just have, once you get that first thing in and you try different things, it's like marketing. You try something, it doesn't work. You try something else. You're always like optimizing, testing and trialing and fixing things. And then once you get 1 or 2 or 3, it then just starts to snowball. And that's what happened to me. I would go to bed some nights and I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Yes, I was an early riser because I had to go to the gym, I had to do work, and then I had to get to my full-time job. So I got up at 4:30 in the morning and sometimes people would order a job before I went to bed, after I went to bed, maybe like 10, 20 minutes after I fell asleep. Then they would buy the extra package, which meant 24-hour delivery. So by the time I woke up, I would only have like 18 hours, probably less, to work on that job. So it was crazy. There was things coming in like this, but it was because I was putting the energy in and I was optimizing my profile. The same is with anything, whether it's Fiverr, social media, wherever your channel is that you want to get clients, you just have to keep learning, growing, and developing on that channel. And once you get 1, you get 2, and then it just starts to snowball from there.
I like that. And I really like how you brought in that aspect because so many people treat these platforms as a set and forget. You know what I mean? I just show up and then everything else, people would just start, throwing work at me. And it doesn't work like that. The same with social media, like you have said. You know what I mean? You got to show up, you got to create for and relate to the audience that you're going to be wanting money off of and, rinse and repeat and, find ways to get more, find ways to retain more customers so you don't necessarily have to be on the offense all the time. But I wish a lot of people had this sort of mindset because so many people call me up and say, hey, we just started putting ads 3 hours ago and nothing is happening and we've spent $500. Should we kill it? And I'm like, I think one thing you should kill is your business because I don't think you understand how this whole thing works. You know what I mean? So good on you for having discovered that a whole lot earlier. But what now intrigued me in the person you've become is a whole different person that would have been in negative days in corporate. How did you do that from employee to business on a transition? There's a whole click and a mindset that doesn't exist with a lot of people because if you're talking hours and 18 hours and you're saying I have to produce, somebody will be looking at this and saying, hey, I can get paid what, $50, $60 an hour. Why am I doing a $10 job and having to do more to even earn something that's not going to buy me a beer at the end of the day? So, just walk us through that sort of transition that you had because it's very crucial and very critical for where we're going to next.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I think for me, it was the desire for freedom that outweighed the money for me, right? And I actually, I was earning okay money, but not amazing. I was living, paycheck to paycheck. I got paid monthly. I loved to party, so I loved to drink alcohol and spend all my money on alcohol and travel. So the first thing I did was push the money thing aside. And someone that's come on your podcast before, Leticia Andrak, talks about this a lot, and she talks about it in her book. And what she says is it's this the first thing when you want something, she talks about in her book, you lean into it, right? And then what happens is you think of the end goal and then you work backwards for what you need to get there. So you don't think about, oh, I need the money. Like you don't worry about that. You just know that you want to work for yourself. Why do I want that? It's not because of the money. I want it because I'm sick of people telling me what to do. I want to travel more. I know there's more for me out there. And at that time, I was reading a lot of books. I was doing a lot of personal development. I came across a book by a man called Hal Elrod. He was the inventor of the miracle morning. Basically, you get up an hour early and he has this thing called savers. You journal, you exercise. He has this acronym. And you go through the process and then you feel amazing. And you do. It's right. It's like the 5 a.m. club. It's that kind of concept. Not that that was going to change the person I become to be a full-time business owner, but it got me thinking about what was possible. And then he launched a book about getting what you want. And it's kind of a manifestation book, but it's not about that because he puts in faith and extraordinary effort. So putting in effort and knowing you're going to get there. So what I started to do is in my journal every day, I would write that I was going to travel full time and be a business owner. And I wanted it no matter what. I was going to trust the process, but I was going to work hard to get there. So then, of course, the next process is understanding how much money I would need to sustain that life. Like, how can I replace my income? I don't need to get more just yet, but I just need to replace it. Now, there's a key factor in my business journey that I understand not a lot have this privilege. So I'm going to put that disclaimer out right now. COVID happened and I had to leave Melbourne. So I moved in with my brother and paid $75 a week in rent. So I understand my privilege to be able to quit my full-time job earlier because I didn't have the expenses that I had when I lived in Melbourne when the whole world was open. I also don't have a family and someone else relying on, well, now people relying on my income, but before I didn't. So I was in a very good position to make that risky decision. But I think everyone's decision to make, if you have a decision to go, you want to be a full-time business owner, you make the steps to make it happen. And yes, it might take you longer than you want or longer than someone else that you're watching, but everyone's circumstance is so different. And I took that window of opportunity and I just ran with it. And then I always find, for example, once you hire your first team member, you might lose a couple of clients, which means your income drops, but you'll gain a couple of clients at the same time. So you'll always be able to continue to pay that team member. Once you get into the habit of paying that team member, it becomes habit. You make it work all the time. And that's just what happened. Things expand and contract when you need them to. And for me, I knew I wanted that. So I just slowly, one by one, made goals, like little goals. The first one was, telling my boss I started a side hustle. The second one was launching a website, like all these tiny steps that would get me closer towards that big goal. And I put a date in my calendar. I didn't actually end up being the date I quit my job because of COVID, but I just wanted to hold myself accountable for something. And you know what I did? January, when we had our performance reviews with our bosses and we're setting 2020 goals, I sat my boss down and said, don't worry about the goals. I'm quitting in May. And he's like, why are you telling me this now? I'm like, because if I don't tell you, I won't do it. So I just set that intention and we made a plan for me to exit. Again, it didn't end up happening till a month after that date because of COVID and I was asked to stay a bit longer. But I just made those decisions and I just acted accordingly to that choice that I'd made. Again, I had a privilege in that moment and not everyone has that, but I think we all make the goals work for our circumstances.
I like that. And I don't think you needed to put that disclaimer there, but since you're the queen of content, people would then just subscribe to that. But we make our own opportunities. We create our own luck. Okay. So around you who can put you in the position that you want to, as long as you're clear on where you want to go. And I like the fact that you sort of project into the future, and then you reverse engineer where it is that you are. It's just like when you're driving elsewhere, like you said, you lived in Gippsland and were working in Altona. If you were going to be going to Altona, you put the address of Altona, not the one in Gippsland, so that the GPS will self-navigate to where you exactly are, and you can just enjoy the ride. So many people want to control and make decisions based on where they are, not who they want to become. And I quite like that you also even put your boss on notice, because so many people don't have people that keep them accountable. All right. And if you don't have that, you sort of sleep it under the rug. If you walk in a lot of people's houses, there's lumps under their rugs, and you wonder what is happening. Is because nobody was there to then say, hey, you said you were going to quit in May. What are you still doing here in September? You know what I mean? And if no one is holding you accountable, then it doesn't sort of manifest. And congratulations for doing that. So you went on that. COVID happened, it happened to everybody else. And then you also went through what you went through. What kept you motivated? I mean, obviously you said you wanted the freedom and you were learning from all these people. So you had the information and, whatever influences that you were having, but there's always something that would, one day you'd wake up in the morning and be like, not today. And then just, press the snooze if you guys are still working on an alarm clock. But there's got to be some sort of motivation and, stuff that kept you really going, because a lot seemed to be working against you at this particular time.
Yes, it definitely, and sometimes, I had my moments where I was like, why me? I had one the other day when I was not feeling very good. And we have those moments. Why me? Why does this have to happen to me? I was 26 when I was diagnosed with 2 tumors and cancer. And I was like, why? That's not meant to be my journey, And I think you can sit there and you can feel sorry for yourself. And I think there's moments for that, because we do need to feel the emotion, because it's hard and we're not all, meant to just pick ourselves up and move forward every day. But I remember there was, quite a few times when I was in hospital. I mean, I have a really amazing support network. My parents were with me throughout my whole surgery. It was in Sydney. So, and I'm originally from Gippsland in Victoria. So they came up to Sydney and spent 6 weeks whilst I was in hospital for 4. So they were there every day. They came in, they gave me, supported me. They held me while I cried, or they, wheeled me outside to get some fresh air. And I think, there's those moments where you're like, it's not going to happen for me. But one thing I did mention is I hate people telling me what to do, right? So my motivation was, I'm not going to let these things get in the way of what I want long term, because I'm a very legacy person. I've always been. I'll take legacy over money any day of the week, because that is just me. I have stories to share. I have people that I want to help, whether it's from creating content for them or potentially sharing my story in my book that will come out. This is me announcing it on a podcast, so I'm accountable for it, and it comes out and it happens. But basically, I knew that, when I am on my deathbed, which at that time felt like then, to be perfectly honest and open, but I wanted to think, when I'm eventually on my deathbed, what am I going to remember and what am I going to want? And is it putting myself in a bubble wrap and, I can't do that because, what if something goes wrong and I feel unwell, because it can happen at the drop of a hat. Oh, what if the cancer comes back? I better not do that. And I just thought to myself, at the end of the day, I would rather, die happy doing what I want than putting myself in bubble wrap and not living a life. And there were, after my surgery, I did identify myself as ill for a little while. And I was like, okay, I can't do that because I'm sick. I can't do that because I'm sick. And it wasn't until I met my partner that I realized I can't keep identifying myself as this, because I will become that. Yeah. And as I mentioned before, it's a manifestation thing, right? So like, what do I want? What is my vision? And I got stuck and I got lost in 2021. It was really hard. I fell back on work and I worked more after my surgery. And then I remember having a session with my mentor, and she's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "I want to travel. That is what I want." And she said, "We need to put in the things in place to make that happen, because right now, if you had the opportunity to travel, because we were still in some kind of lockdown in Melbourne, you know, it was going on for a while, you wouldn't be able to. You're working too much. You know, you're anxious because of your health. I still had pain. I actually needed a second surgery. So how are we going to make that happen?" And then again, I put the actions in place. I saw that end goal. I didn't know when it was going to be. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I put things in place so that when the opportunity was there, I could take it. And I took it as soon as we had that chance. And I think you're going to get lost along the way. That's part of the journey. But that's why you always come back to what you want and your vision, and you continually to ask yourself, it might change, right? I'm going to get to a point where I don't want to travel anymore, and I'm going to have a new vision, or a new outlook. But at that time, that was still the vision. So I had to chase it.
Fantastic. And good on you for choosing yourself, because anyone who would have been in your situation would have just been like, you know what? I think that's about it, and things of that nature. But guess what? Now you have a good story to tell, and you know, who
Yes.
wouldn't want to be in those shoes? You know, having standing in front of a podium and telling that story. And congratulations on the upcoming book. And
Thank you.
you know what that means. You see, you've declared that the book is coming, so that means we're gonna have a repeat episode. So before maybe we start talking about the second episode, let's just maybe wind this one up a little bit and yeah, just see how we go. But congratulations. It's not easy, to come from where you've come from. And even though you're soft blowing it, just so that you don't own the actual credit of what you had to go through by saying, I had, a few favors come my way, but you wouldn't have been having those favors had you not been you. So the fact that you chose you first and you became who you were supposed to be, anyone would back that up, especially if you're backing yourself up. So congratulations. It's not easy.
Thank you.
Right now, talking about storytelling and things of that nature, people come to the internet to get information. And obviously, as a business, if you're the person providing that information, then they get to know, like, and trust you. And people usually do business with those they know, like, and trust. Now, you've taken up storytelling, as part of the thing that you help people with, which obviously is the secret sauce of marketing. Now, how do you sort of integrate storytelling into your content strategy, and why do you reckon that's the best thing for you to be doing, even if you're telling other people's story?
Yeah, I love that question. I think, I understood the power of storytelling when I started sharing my health story online. I always knew storytelling was something I liked to do. And I always knew, kind of from a marketing perspective, it was a good idea. But it wasn't until I shared my own story on TikTok, especially, and, on YouTube. And I had young women reach out to me being like, "I'm having this surgery in a couple of days, help me." And I was like, this is interesting. I was like, okay, well, what happens if we did this kind of connection from a business perspective? What would happen? So I was already sharing stories, but I did it with more intention, and I incorporated it into my strategy. So what I started doing and helping other entrepreneurs with is thinking about, okay, the what's in it for me, right? Because everyone wants something out of what you have to say, but connecting it with your personal experience, an experience you've heard, or an experience of a client, an experience even in the public domain, or a hypothetical analogy type experience. So different storytelling and how it can impact the person watching, listening, reading. Because a lot of us want to be entertained, and we come to these online platforms to be entertained, but we also want to learn something. And the power of storytelling is not only does it entertain your audience, but they will learn something if you do it from a marketing business perspective. So that's why I always like to pair strategy and storytelling together. So for example, on my podcast, I'll always share a story, a strategy, and then I'll link back a story at the end to tie it together to make it entertaining so people can follow the experience, but then they can also learn something in the process and implement it themselves. So as a business owner or any kind of content creator, if you take that concept and try it out and see what happens, then you'll be interested to see how your audience reacts, because they'll be invested in the story, But then they'll also be like, oh, hang on, I actually learned something of how I can do something differently, or and you'll see influencers do it really well, right? They'll always actually share most of the time, the good influencers, how other people could do it to benefit their lives. Don't do what I did, or things like this. So we can learn a lot, actually, which sounds interesting, from influencers, because they are so heavily connected to their audience. And this is the biggest part of storytelling, is connection, because we're connecting with that person. We're sharing our own experience, or an experience of someone we know, or an analogy or hypothetical experience, for people to connect with what we have to say. And then if we pair it with some kind of lesson, educational piece, again, as I said, I think that connection, it's actually like top and middle funnel content at the same time. So you're like grabbing people's attention, entertaining them with top of funnel, but you're giving them some kind of educational piece. So you're knocking off two funnels in one piece of content, which I think is a win-win in my books. And then, of course, the more trust you build with your audience, the more likely they are to convert. And we're living in a society now where you can't just slap up a post promoting your item and expect people to buy. You got to give them a very good reason to do that. And actually, a lot of businesses now are focusing more on top and middle funnel content, sort of brand awareness and consideration content, rather than just conversion, because people are swiping. And as you said, now content's getting delivered to people, but people are still trying to find things. And if you appeal to what they're trying to find and make it entertaining at the same time, I think that's how you're going to build the most amount of trust, and you'll be above your competitors in that space.
I love that. And the Queen has spoken. Y'all heard her, because at the end of the day, if you're not creating for and relating to the audience that you seek to influence, then people would just swipe right or swipe left. I'm not talking about that kind of swiping, but we all know what we're talking about. Now, you brought about two seemingly interesting subjects. Now that we've got you speaking about work, we might as well just bring you into that realm a little bit. Audience connection. All right, this is where a lot of people get it wrong. All right, some people don't quite know what it is that they want their audience to ask them to do for them, and usually they just show up, spray and pray with their marketing, and end up doing random acts of jiu-jitsu marketing, and just hope whatever kick they're gonna throw is just gonna land on that person. What are some of the fun, maybe marketing campaigns, or like you mentioned, top of the funnel sort of content strategies that maybe you have implemented, or for your clients, that really connect with your audience?
That is so good. I actually posted something on social media the week, and I was like, the era of posting and hoping for the best is over. So you need to start thinking about a strategy. And actually, I recorded a podcast this afternoon about understanding our audience and understanding what they want. And that's where, top of funnel comes in, because top of funnel can be anything from opinionated, depending on your personality, if you're willing to go down that route and ruffle some feathers. I'm seeing a lot of people doing it online and it's working out for them, but they do get a lot of hate. So just if you've got a soft personality like me, might not be the best strategy. But then we're looking at inspirational. How can you inspire your audience and be aspirational to them? But then how can you be relatable to them as well? Put yourself in their shoes and understand what it is they're going through, because you're the expert. And especially in marketing, I mean, you might know, Prosper, when we have marketers out there talking about, click-through rates, and they're using all their jargon, and people are like, huh? And if you want to appeal to another marketer, great job. They will understand. But if you want to appeal to a small business owner or an entrepreneur, that's where you got to understand, where are they at in their journey, and how can you meet them there? And if you meet them there and make content that is relatable, I mean, in terms of fun marketing campaigns, keep it super authentic and natural to you and your brand. I'm running a campaign at the moment about travel. We've got this awesome video campaign coming up. My partner is working on it as we speak, and it's so cool. But we worked out what the audience was going through. And then I met them there and worked out where they want to be. So I created a marketing campaign, and this element of the marketing campaign around taking a concept of where they're at. For example, being chained to their laptop, feeling like, oh my God, I've got to post on social media. It's 5 p.m. and I've got to, people are telling me I've got to be on social media every single day. And then to actually being like, this is not why I started my business. I started my business to travel. I started my business to be with my family. So what I did is I turned that on its head. I talked about how at the start, I'm chained to my laptop. I'm like struggling. And then I scroll my phone, and all of a sudden I'm on TikTok and there's heaps of travel videos. And they're all of me traveling around the world. And then all of a sudden I'm interrupted by an alarm that's telling me I've got to post on social media. And then I'm stressed and I'm panicking and I'm trying to post and I'm not enjoying my surrounds. And then I realize I have a strategy and the content is scheduled and I don't have to worry about it. And then I go on my way, living my best life. And that was where I could meet my audience where they're at and show them the dream of where they could be, but what they needed to get there. So that's just an example of taking people on a journey, taking them on an experience, and putting them in that scenario of where they go from like being in a horrible situation to being in a really fun situation, and then realizing what they need to continue. So things like that, meeting people where they're at and just understanding and playing around with things, seeing things that you like as a content creator and a business owner, and then seeing where your audience, what they like, and then kind of mixing that together to make something fun. Like content should be fun. It should be a fun process. Doesn't mean we have to show up every day, but if we can make it fun in our own way, I think that's the power of it. And your energy is everything in it as well.
Fantastic. I quite like that. You see, when you say that, ndikatanga kutaura chirudzi chausinganzwe ungandinzwere ipapapa handorotoshamisa kuti ndiri kuti kudii handiti. All right. There hasn't been a glitch in the matrix there. You might be thinking, Mariah, what has actually happened? Did you understand what I said at all?
No, sorry.
No, absolutely. And that was intentional, right? So I said in my own language, if I start speaking in a language that you don't understand, I don't think you would understand me. Right now, you're just looking at me weird, and it's getting uncomfortable because I think I'm communicating, but you're just standing there going, what is he saying? Have we gone on a different tangent here? You see, so that's what a lot of people are doing, especially when it comes to content. They're not connecting with the right kind of people, with the right kind of pain, and the right kind of message at the right time, and with the right energy, like you keep stressing out. And that's the reason why so many people like they say in the stats, not a lot of people go past the 3-year mark because they're just hoping onto the next thing, and it's not working for them. And the audience is just, what did you just say? Like we experienced there, and obviously that's the reason why, people like yourself that are actually, trained themselves, educated themselves on how to actually help others be, do, and have a business that's profitable and enjoyable is very crucial to have, as part of the people that we're learning from and listening to. Now, you've got a workshop on content strategy, right? And I feel like from what you said and who you become and who you're becoming, sounds like a game changer for small business owners. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about how it actually works and how it empowers entrepreneurs to start crafting these narratives that will actually help them connect with their audiences?
Yeah, no, thank you. So basically, I put together a 7-step framework to help business owners understand strategy, from researching, building, when, where, and what they're going to post, and then of course execution, because a lot of us struggle with executing and making sure it goes out consistently. So I put together a workshop to really help entrepreneurs go through these steps and learn them, and just start to educate ourselves in proper content marketing strategy. Not just posting every day is not a strategy. And we're hearing people say that on social media, but we don't know what the strategy is. So this 7-step process takes you through all the elements that you need to build your own strategy. And I think it's free. It's the perfect place to just get a little bit more educated. As I was saying today, I find my audience in the educational space are the ones that just want to test how content marketing, social media works for them. So they don't want to invest a lot of money. They're not ready to outsource, thousands of dollars to get someone to do it for them. They need to understand it themselves. And to understand it, you need to implement a strategy, measure it, test it, work with it, and change it. And then once you learn it, you can start to understand whether it's profitable for your business to continue on with content marketing, and then you can outsource, and happy days. You've got, people like my clients who, one of them It's like, I'm sorry, what do you need from me today? Because I'm off. And I'm like, nothing, no worries. Oh, great. So they're having the day off. So, then you can kind of get to that point, but you need to test and see if it's going to work for you. And I think that's a great place to start. And it's free. The best things in life are free. And have been known to put a lot of value into my workshops. So, stay tuned for value because that's what you're going to get. But yeah, I think that's the best place to start if you're like, oh, okay, I need to take this a bit more serious.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, the fact that you're offering it to people and they can, is it like an on-demand type setup? Because while you're jet setting and globe trotting, you also want to be creating that value, that freedom in your own
Yes.
life in the process. Okay. So how best can people get a hold of you in order for them to set this up for themselves?
Yeah, so you can just head to my website, contentqueenmariah.com, or I'm on social media, Content Queen Mariah on Instagram, and then you can find me on LinkedIn, which is Mariah MacInnes, MacInnes. And if you want to connect with me anywhere, I'm sure to share with you what I think is the best. I'm not the type of person that's going to tell you that you need to invest heavily into a space that you don't need to. So I'm always here to give actual, like what you actually need in terms of advice for your content marketing, depending on where you're at in your journey. But yes, I used to do them live. I've done them live from some interesting places, France, Morocco, a tent, all sorts of places. But I had to put it online, on demand because it was getting a bit hard to navigate time zones. But it's from my best workshop that I did. So it's the best one. Everyone will get the best live energy that without it being live.
Absolutely. And I'll definitely make sure that we've got those links and people can actually access that content workshop. Now, we've come full circle. I mean, you've lived where I'm calling home now, and you're trying to run away from here as far away as possible. What's the traveling been like? Has it been all that you ever wished for? Because you couldn't wait when you were at work, so much that you were in a day deficit, and I don't know how anyone can ever do that. At your previous job, and now you're traveling and enjoying life in a whole different sort of world and postcode and area every week or so. Is it what you hope it would be?
Yeah, that's a good. No one's asked me that question. That is a really good question. Yes, it's amazing. But as I mentioned to you before we started recording, there's always challenges that come with traveling full time. But I think, I sort of mentioned really setting no expectation and doing some kind of practice to eliminate your expectations. But I think for me, there's been moments that I didn't expect to be the most amazing that have been, and ones that I thought were going to be amazing weren't, which is super interesting, right? For example, we traveled full time in our car. So we turned our SUV into a bed, like the back seat into a bed, and we had a tent and we traveled all the east coast of Australia. We did it randomly because we're like, let's just start our travels now. We always planned to go to Europe. And I remember it was like April last year and we're in our tent working away. And I just looked at my partner and I'm like, I have never been this happy in my life.
Oh.
This is the happiest I've ever been. And we cook our food from like a gas thing, and it was just like, we had a little rice cooker so we could make our rice, being with a South American, you got to have your rice. So, there was like these things that we just didn't need and we realized we didn't need. And then like, for example, like some places in Europe, like we went to Barcelona, which was like, I loved Barcelona. It was like one of my favorite places, but it just didn't meet where I thought it was going to meet. But then there was other places in Europe that did, and we went to Morocco for a month, and that was like an experience I never thought we are going to have. So there's just like, a lot in the unexpected, like expect the unexpected always when you travel, but I think that's where the magic happens. And it is a lot what I pictured, but there's also those things you just don't think about. What if I get sick? Which surprisingly enough didn't think about, even though I've had all these health dramas. I just, sometimes I'm just oblivious to those things. Or what if my phone, like I can't get internet, or what if, those things that sometimes you just don't think about that happen, and you have to really build resilience and work out how you're going to navigate such challenging experiences, because I also think I've never been as frustrated at the same time as happy. which is crazy, right? So I think it is everything I wanted and more, but there's also with anything comes challenges and days where you're just like, I don't want to go outside. I just want to be inside. And that's okay. You don't have to go and explore something every day. You can, it's your own adventure. Do it how, don't worry about what's happening on social media and the person that went to this place got these certain photos or went down this random track and found this viewpoint. Like just travel how you want because it's your journey. And maybe you don't like the beach, so you don't have to go. I mean, I do, but I think we're always expected to like things, and if we don't, that's okay. And I think when you realize what you want, it makes for an awesome journey. But I love it. I absolutely love it. It's the best. But every day has an interesting challenge.
I like that because every situation is unique to the person based on their interests, their beliefs, and who they want to become. Because I think some people would not even think of, living the life that you live, and some people will be longing for it so much that they would actually put themselves in harm's way or in danger just so that they could put themselves in that sort of situation. But what sort of advice would you give to anyone who would want to embark on anything? And I know this is very vague, but you've done quite a lot. You've experienced what life is like, in a structured society sort of way. Now we don't even know where you are. It's a good thing there's an internet, that at least we've all caught you in one particular time zone. But by the time, we send people to come look for you, you're not there tomorrow. So yeah, what sort of advice would you give to people? Because there's a lot of, like you said, it's a journey and self-discovery, and you've
Mm.
grown a lot from what you said you were at the time. You were lying in bed and you just didn't want to face the next day. But right now, so full of life and you can't wait for the next adventure.
Yeah, that's a good question. And the one thing I always say in this experience is you have to surrender to the process. Because if I didn't surrender to the process, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wanted to travel since like 20, my first overseas trip was in 2013. I loved it ever since. But, I was thrown, we were all thrown COVID, and I thought, all right, that's not going to derail me. I was thrown cancer. That's not going to derail me. So, you'll always be thrown stuff that are going to be, do you really want this? Is this what you want? And you have to just surrender to those moments because unfortunately, and much to my dad would always say when they would say no to me, I would say, let's negotiate. I didn't really take no for an answer. But I had to learn that when things didn't exactly go my way, I had to get back up on the horse, so to speak, and keep going. But there is an element of surrender to when it's going to happen because I wanted it to happen in 2020. I remember looking back on my 2020 goals, and it had like the travel thing, and I'd write an update and it'd be like, not yet COVID, hoping for June. And then June would come along like maybe July, and I was just like, okay, we just have to surrender. Whatever will happen will happen. And actually it happened in the most amazing timing because I met my amazing partner, my soulmate. I wouldn't have met him if I didn't get sick and go on this adventure. And now I'm traveling with him. And, once I got sick, my parents weren't too keen on me traveling alone because there's a lot that can go wrong. So yeah, like everything happens, like they say things happen for you, not to you. And I'm a big believer in that. So if you just surrender to the process, hold on to the vision at the same time, it will happen. It just might not exactly happen when you want it to, but you'll reflect and be like, oh my God, I'm so glad it happened when it did.
Oh, fantastic. I like that sentiment. Just surrender because we try and hold on to a lot of things, either the past, even the present or the future. And before we know it, we actually miss out on what is meant to be directed at us. And I can't thank you enough for unpacking your laptop, from your backpack today to just have this moment with us. And you can pack it back now because you're going off tomorrow, aren't you?
Yes, we're off to the coast of Colombia, Santa Marta, which is meant to be very beautiful. But I actually work to Australian time zone. So I've got a lot of clients in Australia. So no worries, I will be chugging away at my laptop. But yes, we have a flight where we're in an airport hotel at the moment, which is, all part of the experience. Not everything is luxury. But yes, we're heading to the coast. I'm very excited. We're actually also going to the hometown of Shakira. So Shakira is always she's just the most famous Colombian ever. And they actually launched a gold statue of Shakira in her hometown. And I'm so excited to get pictures with it.
Oh wow. Well, see now, things like that, you're never going to come across certain things of that nature. And I'm hoping that by the time I go to Gippsland and just start traveling to the Wilson proms, they would have a statue of Mariah, in the center there, and I'll definitely take selfies. Because the Queen herself, would have made a stand. So, what would you want your statue to be? What would you want written on your statue, if you were to have one in Gippsland?
Oh, that is a good question. Um, I think it would say Mariah. Um, I don't know. Just like live life to the fullest MacInnes. That would be my statue. And yeah, maybe I'll have a crown on, I don't know, or a backpack on my back. I'll have to think about that one. But yeah, maybe lives life to the fullest, or um, yeah, maybe a nice quote like happiness is a journey, not a destination, or something like that. Or maybe it could be in Spanish because by then I'll be fluent in Spanish. Maybe, who knows?
Well, we can't wait, and maybe that's an idea for the cover for the book that's coming up. Statue of Mariah with a backpack and just inspiring the world to want more, be more, and have more. And there you have it, folks. The inside scoop on the content creation, storytelling, and marketing magic straight from the Queen herself, Mariah. Now, if you've been inspired by Mariah's insights, and let's be real, who hasn't? Be sure to catch this episode again and share it with your fellow digital dreamers. Now, Mariah, I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent and the value that you just gave us on this episode today.
Thank you so much for having me, Prosper. I love chatting, so I'm so happy to be here and to have chatted with you.
Absolutely. Well, the journey doesn't end here, folks. I want you to first of all subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show for more pearls of wisdom and insider secrets from industry trailblazers like Mariah. And maybe the next time we meet again, we'll be watching the second episode of her unveiling the statue of Mariah in Gippsland. So you never know these things. If you put your mind to it, it will actually happen. So until next time, keep dreaming big, keep hustling hard, and keep prospering online. And also just follow your dreams, people. Bye for now.